Hi guys, welcome to the latest edition of SecondsOut FLEXpectations. We're here every Thursday, 4:30 p.m. to look ahead to the weekend's action. And this week we saw Canelo Alvarez and Callum Smith come face to face, or perhaps face to upper chest to be accurate, in Texas. And for the casual fan, for the non-boxing fan, people that have never seen either of the two guys, you would think that Canelo had it all to do. Smith was so much taller, rangier, just generally bigger, that even seasoned boxing observers expressed surprise across social media at just how significant the disparity was in size. But it just shows how looks can be deceiving, because for people who are aware of boxing and know a bit about it, and also, despite all the jingoistic, if you don't support Smith in the UK, you're a traitor type behaviour we've seen in the last few days, it really is the Liverpudlian who has it all to do. In terms of quality of opposition, starting off, Canelo's been fighting the likes of Triple G, Danny Jacobs, Sergey Kovalev, albeit, at times, but particularly with Kovalev with an asterisk attached, with the short notice and where Kovalev was in his career. These are elite opposition. Kovalev, despite having seen better days, does have victories on his slate against the likes of Bernard Hopkins. A lot of people felt he did enough to beat Andre Ward, who's just gone into the Hall of Fame, in their first fight. So he came with certain credentials. Triple G, obviously, still competing at a very high level. Danny Jacobs, again, world champion. Canelo's credentials in terms of fighting the very best can't be doubted. You might not agree that he deserves to win all those fights, and that's a debate for another day. But he certainly is mixed with top competition. Can't really say the same about Callum Smith as yet. This is without doubt his acid test. He went in, his biggest fight to date was against George Groves in the final of the World Boxing Super Series. Didn't exactly look amazing on the way to that final, but did put in a pretty much punch-perfect performance. Got a bit alliteration crazy there, against George Groves in the final. But George Groves, the final was delayed because of his shoulder injury. He retired after the stoppage defeat. So it's hard to say just what level of George Groves we got in that fight. Was he in his prime? It seems unlikely, but how far removed from it was he, and we don't know. But Callum Smith can only beat who's put in front of him, and he certainly rose to the occasion that night. His catch counter left hand that helped end matters was replayed seemingly endlessly on TV afterwards, and it seems to be a star-making performance. But he's kind of meandered since. We saw that destructive win over Hassan and Dam out in the US, and that was explosive, but kind of what he was expected to do against an opponent who wasn't given a great chance previous to the fight. And then the last time we saw Smith in action was November last year, same as Canelo, actually. And he struggled, laboured, whatever term you want to use, against John Ryder, unsung, mandatory contender who wasn't expected to put up such a stern challenge. And Ryder performed above what we'd seen from him previously. And Smith perhaps performed down because he underestimated his opponent, or perhaps it's just the style and the talent of John Ryder will always give him problems. I haven't watched the fight back since, but on the night I scored Ryder a 1-point winner. He was judged a unanimous loser on the scorecards, which I thought I could have seen the fight go either way, but I thought the scorecards were too wide in favour of Smith. I thought it did Ryder a disservice, and he's out, I should mention, unless I forget later on, that he's out on Friday night on the Triple G bill against Mike Guy. And there's a good interview with Ryder on our YouTube channel currently, where he talks about him being on standby to step in to face Triple G or Canelo if either of their opponents fall out of bed, not literally, but due to COVID or anything like that. But moving on from that, Callum wasn't at his best that night, or didn't appear to be. Whether that's because of Ryder or himself, we don't know. But it will certainly be highly motivated for the Canelo fight. Conversely, Canelo, we saw struggle as well, to be fair, for extended periods against Kovalev last November. Kovalev's jab was particularly effective early on, and Canelo, as we know, likes to fight in spurts. He doesn't produce a consistent work rate generally over the 12 rounds. But he did gradually crank up the pressure as the fight entered just went past the halfway stage, got a bit closer with his feet, threw more punches in bunches as he came forward. And eventually, I think it was round 11, got Kovalev out of there. Lovely left hook as Kovalev was backed up to the ropes, sent him skidding across right in line for Canelo's razor-sharp right hand to follow up and effectively finish the fight. So it turned out to be a mildly impressive performance with an incredibly impressive finish. So fair play to Canelo, particularly for going up to light heavyweight and managing a stoppage when he'd been largely outscoring people down at middleweight. A lot of people in the trade feel super middleweight will really suit Canelo. Outgrown middleweight now. Big guy, chunky, thick set. Not the tallest, it's fair to say. An inch shorter, I believe, than John Ryder, which is interesting. Probably why the disparity between the two was so pronounced when they came face to face or whatever. But Canelo, super middle, light heavy was probably a bit too big for him despite the result against Kovalev. I don't think I think people did fancy seeing him against the real light heavyweight guys like Beterbiev, Dmitry Bivol and people like that. But I think he would go into those fights, if anything, at best a narrow favourite. Against Beterbiev, certainly, probably an underdog. But super middleweight, where he appears to have settled, it looks like a good division for him. And in Callum Smith, he's picked out the consensus number one, the Ring Magazine champion, WBA super champion. And we know now that the vacant WBC title will also be on the line. And yeah, so he's gone straight for the top dog. But it has to be noted, he didn't give him a lot of notice. Now, Callum Smith was already in the gym. I remember seeing a picture on Twitter of him with his gym mates at Gallagher's, looking in great condition with no fight date on the horizon. That was about a week before the fight was announced. So there was obviously an inkling in the team that it was coming. But he already looked in really good shape. But Callum's huge for super middleweight. They've talked about him going up to light heavy for a long time now. So it won't have been easy for him, even if he was already in decent condition, to get down to the weight once that fight date was confirmed. But once you take the fight, you can't really have too many excuses. As Dominic Ingalls said in an interview that you can see on the channel, you know, you've already been ticking over. You knew it was on the horizon. He's got ready for it. Now you just got to give your best on the night. And he certainly looks comfortable and composed, Callum, in the few days he's already been in Texas. Seems to have taken to the added spotlight like a duck to water. But that's again an advantage for Canelo, being the biggest draw in the sport, the boxing's biggest superstar. He enjoys big nights on a regular occasion. He's used to the scrutiny and the spotlight that comes with his status. And not only that, you know, and Joe Gallagher, Callum Smith's trainer, has made quite a big deal of this in the build-up. But I think he's right that, you know, Canelo probably will get the benefit of the tight rounds on the judges' scorecards. You know, it's a superstar fighting in America, specifically in Texas, where Canelo is revered, you know, not too far from the Mexican border. You can't expect Callum to win a close decision over there. If he's going to win this fight, he either needs to stop Canelo, and I can barely remember seeing Canelo hurt in the last decade, or he needs to dominate to such an extent that even the judges can't deny him victory. And it is very much a tough task, and that's what everyone keeps saying, because British people, because of this whole you can't pick against the Brit mentality, which is flawed anyway, don't seem to want to say outright, we don't think Callum can win. But you get the sense that a lot of them don't, but they'll say, yeah, it's a big ask. And that's become code now for predicting a defeat for a guy you really would like to win. And I'm no different, except I will put my neck on the line, but I'm no different in that I'd really like Callum Smith to win. I've got a lot of time for him. He's a lovely guy. And particularly for Joe Gallagher, who, you know, has his critics, but is all for his fighters. You know, no one could be a more fervent supporter of his guys than he is, and he believes in them totally, and he's always going to bat for them. And I'd love to see him do it. You know, it'd be a huge victory for him in his coaching career to take Callum Smith over to the US. And as Dominic Ingalls pointed out, it'd be a victory right up there with the likes of, you know, the one most often quoted, Lloyd Hunnigan beating Donald Curry. But for me, I'd add, you know, Tyson Fury beating Wilder and Klitschko in their home nations, or adopted home nation in Klitschko's case, in recent times. You know, it would be a great, great win. It's just hard to see how he achieves it. Because for me, as much as I think Callum Smith's a very hard puncher, with the left hook up and down, and also with the right hand, but particularly that left hook to the head and the body, and I believe he can hold his own against Canelo in terms of boxing skills, I don't see him being able to hurt him consistently with more than one punch at a time. I don't see him being able to stop or knock him out, which means he'll need to dominate to win on the cards. And I think it's very hard for anyone to dominate Canelo. He's slick. He's improved greatly from the fighter who lost to Floyd Mayweather. His footwork particularly is much quicker than it used to be. His upper body movement is very, very impressive. The way he rolls under and around shots to get in range. And he puts his punches together beautifully at times. You know, his combination, switching from head to body and back down again. Body to head and back down again. Particularly adept. And he is, for me, the #1 pound-for-pound fighter in the world today. People talk about Terence Crawford, Vasyl Lomachenko before he lost to Teofimo Lopez and other fighters. And perhaps they show more flair, more excitement, more ability at times. But Canelo is the one who's fought the top level opposition on a regular basis and triumphed. And that's what you can say. He's always found a way to win. And that's incredibly important. He's a consistent fighter. And against Callum Smith, I think there's certain physical disadvantages he'll have to overcome, of course. And I think it will take him some time to work that out, how to get inside that jab. And Smith needs to dictate as much as he can behind the jab. He needs to get it going early, busy, vary it. But I think Canelo will ultimately work that out. And as Smith tires, because he will need to produce a strong work rate to keep Canelo occupied and to offset his rhythm, I think as he tires, Canelo will come into the fight more, very similar to against Kovalev. And I'm not sure he stops Callum Smith. I think Callum's very tough, and I think he'll hang in there and he'll keep it competitive till the end. But I do believe Canelo will get the victory on points. I don't think it will be controversial or contentious. I think it will be relatively close. But with everyone having Canelo a winner, kind of 7-5, 8-4 in rounds. So yeah, that's what I think. And before I go, I should mention some other shows taking place over the weekend. Friday, as I've mentioned, John Ryder's on the undercard of Triple G, who should still have enough left to get past his mandatory IBF middleweight contender or challenger, Kamil Zuremeta, who's tough and game, but I think Triple G will just have too much class and power for him. And we'll also see on Friday night here in the UK, live and exclusive on Channel 5. And we've got guys there in the bubble as well. The Hennessy Sports Show, topped by a really intriguing British light heavyweight title fight between the champion Shakan Pitters and the challenger Craig Richards. This fight's been postponed a couple of times. It was first scheduled for December last year, and then with the title on the line for March earlier this year. And there's been pullouts, there's been recriminations, there's been arguments. You can see the E-press conference, which I had the dubious pleasure of hosting yesterday. You can watch that on the channel. There's no love lost, it's fair to say. And they're both normally really happy, positive, laid-back guys. But put them in the same room or even on the same online feed, it seems, and it brings out a whole other side to both men. And you should really tune into that, because I think style-wise, it makes for an excellent fight, and I think there'll be fireworks. But that's my opinion. I'd like to hear yours, as always. What's your prediction for Canelo against Smith? How do you see it going? Is Smith being undervalued? I think he's 3-1 overall to win with the bookies and 10-1 to win a decision in Texas, and I understand why, but it still seems quite wide to me. What do you think? I'll be back on Monday for reflections, looking back on the weekend's action, 4:30 p.m. And next week, FLEXpectations, Christmas Eve, Thursday. So as long as I can find someone to do the editing and stuff, I'm still happy to produce a video. I'm not sure what I'll be FLEXpecting over the Christmas period, as there's no real boxing going on, but we'll work something out before then. As always, really appreciate your time, and I will see you all soon. Cheers.